Živijo, jaz sem Boštjan Ahbar in to je podcast Podrobnosti, epizoda številka, Anže, pomagi mi.
46.
Tako je.
Ker 45 je bil live.
Tako, 45 je bil live. Anže, izvoli. Pokomentiri live, kaj ne?
Ja, ful hvala sem, ker ste prišli. Ker je kar mal kičast, koliko ljudi je prišlo, pa ful sorry vsem, ki niste mogli not, ker res mi nikoli ne vemo, kaj točno pričakovati, koliko ljudi bo prišlo, ampak vas je prišlo toliko, da baje niste mogli noter. Tako da to sem rekel, da moram takoj na začetku reči, sorry, bomo naslednji let probali to nekako rešiti. Drugače pa je bilo
križanke.
Ulica hoče križanke v glavnem. Ful hvala, ki ste prišli, pa jaz mislim, da je bilo dobro, zdaj pa ne vem, to ne drugi sodijo, ampak meni je bilo super, no. Tako ne vem, ko je bilo tep.
Ne, res je bilo dobro in ne vem, težko je reči, da je zdaj zaradi te publike. Tudi če je bilo po mojem 10 ljudi, pa če je bili tisti res ta pravi, ko so poslušalci pa uživali, bi rekel, da lihte je bilo super, ampak vseeno videti tisto maso ljudi, pa je, da je bilo več kot 400 ljudi noter nagnetenih. Pa tudi v mojem imenu full sorry tistim, ki niso mogli noter v letni vrt Gajo, ker je bilo dejansko sedeži so bili razgrebljeni že eno uro pred začetkom live-a in je bilo kar malo nerealno, no, tako pogledaš nazaj, da toliko ljudi posluša in tako da res, kot sem povedal na koncu tega eventa, res ful, najlepša hvala, zato ker nam ogromno pomeni, da vidimo ta support, te poslušalce, ki res uživajo v tem, kar mi delamo, o čem govorimo in lahko sam rečem, da se vidimo naslednje leto. No.
Ja, definitivno, ja. To res namo neha.
Tako da sem pripričan, da bomo še nadgradili to. Če smo od lani do letos naredili en tak skok naprej, bomo probali še naslednje leto tako širiti ta podcast, to mrežo, vse, kar se dogaja v zvezi s tem in na koncu, če potegnemo črto, vse delamo zaradi vas, ki poslušate, tako da res hvala.
Res je.
Tako je, v predzadnji epizodi, sicer v taki resni epizodi, da rečemo na rekovajih, je bil pa gost Anže Kopitar, naš hokejski as, legendarc, car oziroma kralj, tako da se dajte to pogledati. Danes pa malo drugačna epizoda, ampak še prej pa Anže, a bomo prvo admin zadeve, pa potem nazadnje gosta. Ajde, izvoli.
Podcast najdete na aparatus.si, smo tudi na Facebooku, tam posrčate aparatus.si. Podcast Podrobnosti ima tudi svoj Twitter račun, podrobnosti, podčrtaj si, ki ga upravlja naš zvesti, zato ker mora biti sužen strokovnjak.
Ja, ki ni temno polt.
Ki ni temno polt, to je treba povedati. In pa ki pač žal ni bil na live eventu.
Ni mogel, kaj če je delal.
Če je delal, to je res, ja. Tako da to...
Kaj sem razmišljal?
Ja.
Naslednje leto bi mogli imeti ta sužen strokovnjak, da bi mogel prek periskopa v live dati.
Snemati, da lahko ljudje uživajo.
Ja, tisti, ki ne more noter, veš.
To je to. Bom videl, kako so to zmožnosti.
Zdaj neki periskop aktualen po to novem, ni?
To je, bomo videli. To je slabo. Srčki forever, stari. Tvoj brat jih je do ful, to je zdaj random, ki so weird inside joke. Glavnem, podcast Podrobnosti in pa celo mrežo Aparatus lahko tudi podprete, tako to naredite tako, da greste na aparatus.si/podpri ali pa kupite šalco.
Šalca, ful za dobra šalca, zanimiva šalca. Hvala vsem, ki ste dali na Twitter, slike od šalc, ki so polne prazne v rokah, na mizi, kakorkoli že, en ima kuščare zraven.
Ja, en ima kuščare zraven.
Tako da poveš več o tem, tisti, ki mogoče niso še slišali.
Pač v trgovini IKA lahko kupite šalco in s tem podprete Aparatus, tako da bomo mi imeli denar za opremo in serverje in podobno. Ne. Je pa to polona šalca, se pravi, unika ne veste, to je ena fajn punca, ki dela res odlične, kvalitetne šalce in je pač narisala nekaj, kar je na tej šalci.
Več namenske, prvo, tisto nekaj jeti, ki je podoben tebi. Dajmo se zdaj nekaj zakrivati oči. Dajte pogledati to karikaturo, ker je res dobra.
Je na aparatus.si/šalca, salca.
Tako. Drugo kot drugo, pa moram to povedati, da je šalca res večnamenska, kajti folk iz njega pije čaje, folk iz njega pije kave, folk iz njega pije vroče čokolade, folk iz njega pije enostavno vodo, ali pa če ste kot jaz, jete iz njega ven sladoled. Tako da se splača kupiti to šalco, ker je ampak to pa brez zabancije, prava velikost za vse te stvari. Tako da
Ja, je tako velika šalca, ampak
pa ne prevelika.
Pa da se jo pred, pa tako res je kvalitetna.
Ja.
Pa tle moram še enkrat reči hvala in trgovini IKA in Poloni, ker brez njih te šalce ne bi bilo, ker so res tako donirali čas, znanje in pa prenašali so mene, ko sem jim težil za to šalco. Tako da, še njim hvala. Tako da, zdaj pa lahko napoveš gost.
Ja, še prej bom samo rekel, če res tečete brezca, tisti, ki veste, kaj bom zdaj povedal, dajte mu malo biceps pokazati. Biceps, roka.
Roka.
Predvsem Ljubljančani, če vidite brezo, obvezno biceps vam pokazati. Tako pa danes je pa gost, je pa Lukas Müler, ki je v bistvu, kaj ga je najlažje predstaviti, v bistvu adventure, avanturist, to sem prav rekel?
Ja, ne vem, tak, mal je nor, no, zdaj pa ti pa...
Čeprav se nekaj, ne vem, nor, bomo videli, koliko je nor, ampak dejansko je nor, ker človek dejansko plava z najhujšimi, največjimi, najbolj zlobnimi, da rečem, morskimi psi na svetu. Pa to ne da plava kar tako, ampak dejansko se z njimi ukvarja, on in njegova organizacija skrbijo za to, da pač se učijo čim več o morskih psih, da jih v bistvu tagajo z takimi transmiterji, da vidijo, kje se nahajajo, kako migrirajo in tako naprej. Posebnost pri tem pa je, da v bistvu plavajo oziroma plavajo z njimi na dah, tako se pravi free dive, tako kot se reče, da grejo v neposredno bližino, se pravi na dotik tudi Great White Sharkom. Kako se reče to po nas? Kaj je veliki beli? Kaj se sploh?
Ja, mislim, da dejansko.
Vseh teh najbolj Hammer Shark, Hammerhead, tako naprej. Z vsemi temi, da so jim v bistvu tako na dotik globoko pod vodo in je to za mene, se zdi, sploh za enega takega človeka, kot sem jaz, ki ima neverjeten strah in neverjetno fobijo pred morskimi psi, se mi zdi, da lih pravi sogovornik. Tako da dajmo poslušati to, da vidimo, kaj se dejansko dogaja z morskimi psi v naših morjih. Anže, sem še kaj pozabil?
Ne, mislim, da je to.
Ok, pa nič, pa štarti zadevo. Okay, so we're here with Lukas Müler, who is an adventurer, freediver, filmmaker, and probably a lot of other things. Lukas, how are you?
Thanks for having me, Loki. It's an honor.
Yeah, no, you're welcome, and thanks for taking the time. I have to say that first of all, I hope Joe Rogan is not gonna be mad at me because I basically stole you as a guest from his show. Because I saw you and him were going back and forth on Twitter about you possibly being on his podcast, and obviously you would fit right in. I mean, with what you're doing and your job and your passion, I think it's simply amazing. I don't really want to be describing you. I think you can do it better in your own words. So maybe you can describe yourself and tell everybody what you're doing and and why you're doing what you're doing, because I think you're...
That's it. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
In my opinion, and I'll tell you later why, I think you're absolutely crazy, no offense.
No problem. For sure, I'll do an introduction, but first of all, that interaction with Joe was crazy, wasn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I think he's one of the best when it comes to picking the guests and picking the topics, but... just to be one of those guys. I think you just sent him a clip basically, right, about you and the Waterman Project, and then he just basically invited you on the show, right?
Yeah.
Which I think it's awesome, and I hope it happens,
And that's the beauty about the internet is that there's always this slight chance that with Twitter or Facebook or whatever you can grasp the attention of somebody that outside of the internet you wouldn't be able to reach. And I send out a small tweet, and I don't tweet a lot. I try to do more, but most of the time I don't have the time for it. And I just send out 3 random tweets at Joe, and I turned off my phone, and half an hour later I look at my phone, it is just buzzing, and Twitter is going crazy, and all these discussions, and it was great. And hopefully we'll. I've talked to Joe, and hopefully it works out in October. But I think he won't be mad at all that I joined your podcast. So
all right, yeah, I hope not. But can you take a minute or two and basically describe who you are and what you're doing, because I think it's pretty impressive, the things you do and how you do them.
Yeah, for sure. Actually, I'm a pretty normal guy. Is how I see myself. I'm from Germany. I grew up in a very normal neighborhood. My parents, pretty cool, normal family. I didn't have like a hard or problematic upbringing like a lot of people have, and I was very fortunate, very privileged in the opportunities I had. And after my school graduation, I decided I wanted to do something that suits my passion, and because I had a lot of things that interested me overall. And then I decided I want to work with sharks and spend time in nature. And it just went from there. And right now I'm a free diver. I go on expeditions for the Waterman Project, which is a nonprofit organization in Switzerland. And basically what we do is we place transmitters and take samples of large predatory sharks and other big marine animals that live in very inaccessible locations or are very difficult to approach. And we help out scientists. And I study biology on the side, basically, because I want to learn the science part of it. But I'm always drawn more to the adventure side, to the field side, to the smelling the ocean and be immersed in the environment. And yeah, that's basically what I do. On the side, I do. I'm a little bit of a filmmaker. I'm able to capture underwater and top water scenes with the camera, do some sound, and edited a couple of small documentaries, and we'll see how it goes from there. But right now, that's what I do.
So how do you choose sharks? That's all I want to know. Because of all the animals, how the hell do you choose sharks?
Yeah, because Lucas, because you said like, oh, I'm studying biology, and then here's sharks. I mean, it's not like the way you describe it is almost like you're talking about butterflies, like it's just so simple, sounds so simple and so harmless. I mean, why sharks?
Why sharks? I'd say it's been in my genetic code, to be honest. When I was 3 years old, I saw the first shark in a book, and soon documentaries followed. And my dad is a pretty crazy guy when it comes to that. My mom didn't let us watch TV channels where there was advertising. We're not allowed to have any weapons as toys. When we were playing with little Lego toys, she'd always take away the guns and the knives and the swords. But my dad, he had to be a pacifist to satisfy my mom. But anytime he got the chance, he'd show us National Geographic documentaries where lions were just ripping apart gazelles and crocodiles hunting, and sharks, of course. And it was sharks. I don't know why. I have the first image I drew of an animal was a shark. And my mom showed it to me, sent me the photo 2 weeks ago. Something it was pretty interesting. And
yeah, that is pretty cool when a person, when you. I always look at it like that when you have an opportunity to do something that you love, like especially if it was like a childhood dream or childhood passion that you maybe now even don't remember that you had, but you did. It's always really cool to be able to do that in your adulthood, to do something connected with that, because I think it's completely different when you have a chance to do that instead of doing a job that you basically hate. You know what I mean?
Yes. And I think if you have something that touches you, that grabs your attention when you're young, and you go back to it later and you pick it up as a hobby, maybe as a side job, or even as your main job, then it's different than when you're 25, 35, and you haven't found your passion yet, and then you pick a random hobby or something to occupy your time or to, get over with the weekends. And what happened for me was I lost track of the sharks. My dad, he always took us out fishing and catching trouts and spending time in the woods. Our weekends were, because my parents back then didn't have a lot of money, a lot of means. So my dad and my mom, they had to basically, come up with fun, adventurous stuff to do. So we were catching trouts with our bare hands at the age of 5 or 6 in rivers, lakes, diving. But I kind of lost that passion when I was going into my teens. Girls got more important, other things got more important, and I lost track of it. And after my graduation, that was when, I had to find something that, I would study or do, and I had no clue whatsoever. And I came across a website that offered volunteerships in South Africa, and you could work on one of those cage diving tourist boats, where they...
Sounds great. Sounds perfect.
Yeah. and I saw that image of a great white shark and I could smell the adventure. And I saved money for 12 months, and I spent all that money on 6 weeks working with great white sharks in South Africa. It was a great adventure. And from there, I think it was just a natural development, and all things just fell into place. Once I knew what I wanted to do, then it was just natural from there on out.
But I mean, maybe it's a very basic question, and you probably get asked this all the time. But aren't you afraid of sharks? Swimming with sharks? I mean, I have to admit. I mean, for me, and I'm gonna sound like a complete pussy now, but I'm completely terrified of sharks. And I'm not saying this because of you. I've always had that since I was a kid, and that's why I was so intrigued or so excited to talk to you about this, because I have a huge phobia against sharks, or how to say, I'm one of those people who, without joking, I swim maybe 30, 40 meters away from the coast max, like along coastline. I won't go
really?
further.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm super bad. Like my wife, even she laughs at me. She'll go like all the way out. I mean, I'm going to talk about Adriatic Sea here in Europe, where we don't even have any big sharks or any dangerous sharks.
You'd be surprised. You have great whites in the Mediterranean.
Don't scare me, please.
Yeah, but like a great white will venture into the Adriatic from time to time, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that actually does happen.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, I'm gonna start doing only pools from now on. No more sea. But seriously, like I have this huge problem. Like it's just a mental block that I can't get over with. Like if I want to do like a swimming practice, which comes great in my off season when I don't do basketball, for example, like I'll rather do pool when I do like laps up and down in the pool instead of going out in the nature, which is much better, which I would prefer. But I'm just so afraid of sharks. And I don't know how to get over that. Like, if you know a way, please let me know, because even my wife is laughing at me when I can't get into the sea more than 20, 30 meters away from the coast.
So that's interesting, because do you know when you were afraid of sharks, or what triggered that fear?
Yeah, I think after I saw Jaws movie as a kid.
Ah, okay, yeah.
that got me, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that got me.
Yeah, Spielberg keeps scaring people, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, but talking about those movies, I mean, they definitely don't help, especially the Jaws movies 1, 2, 3 or whatever they were. I think they definitely, because they were such big hits, myself included, like they were able to maybe washed people's brains thinking into that sharks are really these mean animals that all they want to do is rip apart people's bodies, basically. But correct me if I'm wrong, like it's, I know that it's complete opposite of that. And you have a much, much bigger chance of, I don't know, dying in a car crash than dying by getting bitten by a shark, right?
Yes, you're completely right. I mean, Jaws, it had a huge impact on how people perceived sharks. And I think there's a few movies that can have such a profound impact on how we see the world, on how we see things. And sometimes we underestimate the power of certain movies and media. I mean, just the other day, somebody told me that after Top Gun with Tom Cruise and Val Kilmer came into the cinemas and theaters, there was a 40% increase in enrollment in the Air Force in America.
Yeah, the Navy.
I know this. Yeah, the Navy.
And the Navy, which was insane, you know. So
and that was probably because everybody thought that you automatically get that cool bike that you can ride when you're not on the plane, you know.
yeah, classic, yeah.
Yeah, but movies have a huge impact. I agree.
And with Jaws, you know, your generation, and I think back then Jaws had a huge impact. It had not only a huge impact on how we perceived sharks, but also how we acted on sharks. There was a lot of people who went out trophy hunting for great whites, and you know, even today, I think Jaws is part of the problem. Also, part of the problem is that the media, despite movies, is using sharks as a topic to generate views, to generate sales. Anytime there's like a period in the news, mostly in the summertime when there's nothing going on, like when there's not a lot of events happening or topics happening, and they run out the same stories over and over again, they'll go back to covering shark attacks because they know, they'll sell, airtime, and it's become like a self-reinforcing cycle. You know, it's become cool or a standard in the media to do that. It's a tool to go back to when there's nothing else going on, or you're just not good enough of a journalist to cover something. And this is a huge problem, and it especially for people like you, people who already have a misperception or a phobia of sharks, then this feeds right into that fear. So, I hear that from a lot of people, that it's Jaws or it's the news or it's a movie. And what I tell you is that if you'd go on an expedition with us, or you and I would go shark diving, then I promise you, after 10 or 20 seconds, your entire perception of sharks, what you feel, what you think, will be turned upside down. You'd be fascinated, and your fear will turn into fascination within seconds.
Yeah, that also happens if you watch Shark Week every year on Discovery Channel. That's what I did.
Yeah.
Like, no, I'm serious. Like, Shark Week was always like proper documentaries on sharks without the whole sensationalism of, shark attacks and stuff. And it kind of, I'm that serious. Like, that's when I found out sharks were actually just, a fish, like a large fish, basically.
No, that for sure. There's also, because I do watch a lot of, like whenever I see a documentary about sharks, I'll watch it. And I have to say that there are some documentaries that at least I think do a pretty good job with trying to introduce shark as a species in a good way, not necessarily as a natural, just a natural killer, But I was trying to say before, like, I believe what you're saying, Lukas, but I don't know if I'll be ready to jump in the water knowing there's the sharks in there. This will be the hard part. Once I'll be inside the water, I think, I know what you were saying to turn this into fascination, but God, like knowing there's sharks in the water, you have to push me in too.
I mean, it's the same with everything. Everything you start with, be it in climbing, be it in basketball, the first steps are always the hardest. And
no, it's true. I agree.
To overcome a fear, once you take that first step, it's half the way. Regarding Shark Week, I mean, it's funny you say that in comparison to the other media you've seen, that Shark Week has been the most conservative and accurate depiction of sharks, because from my experience, when I have seen great hammerheads in the Bahamas, or blue sharks in the Azores, or great whites in Mexico, even Shark Week, most of the time, is a total sensationalism of what really sharks are like.
Okay, I will qualify that the Discovery Channel, when I was like 15 years ago, was a very different channel. I will say that.
Okay, that could be. Okay.
It was a much better channel than it is now.
Yeah.
Now it's all people building bikes and fighting. That's pretty much the Discovery Channel.
Yeah, and storage
and all of that
and,
crap.
I don't know,
So
ice road trucker.
No, seriously, like Discovery Channel 15 years ago was actually like a documentary films channel. Like a lot of great stuff. Shark Week was an actual thing that made sense. Yeah, what it is now, I don't even watch it anymore, honestly. Like, I just gave up. So yeah, I am in complete agreement there. So yeah.
Yeah, TV has changed a lot.
Yeah.
Sure.
Oh yeah,
That's an understatement, I think. Yeah.
And you made a good point before, Lucas. It's all about sensationalism, how to draw audience. It's almost like they don't care anymore that, like you said, Angers, like 15 years ago, Discovery Channel was actually a great channel because it seems like they care more about the content, not about the numbers of people watching. Now it seems like it's all about how do we get the most people to watch our channel, and they do it sensational. They do all these crazy things and people arguing and people fighting. And if you look at like commercials for some TV shows they have, it's all like wow, boom, bang, like all crazy stuff instead of basically showing shows that actually can teach you something like it was maybe 10-15 years ago, like you said, Angers.
Yeah, I think it's tiring. If you look at, be it the internet or TV, there's a tendency for sensationalism because you want to draw views, you want to have clicks, you want to have traffic, and I think it's part of evolution of how we consume media. I think over the last 5-6 years, everybody wants to produce the next viral video. Everybody wants to use social media and have 50,000 tweets a day. And I think at some point this will change. I think the more people are using social media and want to produce viral videos and want to be sensationalistic, the more people, or at least a certain group of society, will grow tired of this and will say, I'm sick of the 50,000th inspirational quote and blog about makeup or blog about some person that wants to be the next famous blogger, that there will be a demand for investigative journalism or in-depth blogging coverage, and I think it's only a matter of a couple of years until that market maybe manages to transition to the internet as well. We'll see.
Yeah, I hope you're right.
You're way more optimistic than I am on that. But yeah, like I'm in between. Like, I hope that happens because there's just so much crap on the internet now. It's crazy because everybody has access not just to see but to post things.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Or to modify videos, or to modify photos, or to Photoshop this and adjust that, and it's just simply too much. Yeah, at some point, and I know what you're saying. Like, at some point, you just have enough. Like, it's just too crazy. And I hope maybe, if not our generation, maybe like the next generation that grows up with this, they're gonna be able to like distinguish between, like you said, investigative reporting and what's good reporting and what's not, and really hopefully being able to shut down this craziness that's going on the internet every day. But I think Angers completely disagrees, right, Angers?
Well, not completely. I just think that's how it's always been. It's just more people now are online. That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Like that whole market for proper journalism has always been there. It's just always been a way smaller market than the rest of everything that's in the media. And that will always be the bigger piece of the pie, like always. That's how it's always been. And so I hope that happens, Lucas, but I think you're going to be disappointed.
I agree with you that the majority of people will want to consume easy media, for sure. I think that it's always been a certain piece of the pie that wants proper nature documentaries, that wants investigative journalism, and is not lazy to read 15, 20-page articles. I think that the piece of the pie of those people that were, that documentaries were made for and TV has dropped dramatically. But I see certain changes if you look at Netflix, for example. In the beginning, Netflix focused on hit series, on comedy, on things that were really, really popular and not on niche markets. And now I'm starting to see there's more nature documentaries coming back, more, that Netflix and other platforms see that there's still a market of people, be it on YouTube, be it people that have not, accessed the internet for that content, that they're starting to cater to that portion of society. But I agree with you. I'm probably too optimistic when it comes to the standard of journalism and media in the internet. It's the Wild West in the end.
Yeah, for sure. And to go back to what you're doing and what you're involved in. You said like you're doing also like a lot of filmmaking. Like the way, tell me how it looks like. How do you prepare yourself to for example, the video that I saw on the YouTube that you posted for the Waterman project? Is that your video? Is that whose video is that? Like the one that you tweeted to Joe Rogan also?
I edited that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really cool. I mean, it's a shorter video. It's like about 4 or 5 minutes, but it's really cool.
Glad you like it. Glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah, I mean, I showed it to to a lot of my friends and my family. We were just watching it today also.
Cool, man.
Yeah, the way you're actually in the water with sharks and all your coworkers. But the most impressive thing about it is that you guys are like basically free diving. I mean, you don't see those big oxygen tanks on your backs, and I mean, how does that look like? I mean, getting up and catching breath and then staying for the water in the water. How long? Like, how does that all go? Because once you're on the water, you can see what's going on, but when you're not, it's difficult to see what's underneath you.
Freediving is for me, it's one of the coolest sports and activities you can do. As I said earlier, I've tried a lot of sports. I've tried a lot of different things. And when I started to do freediving, I found what I was looking for. And basically what freediving is you hold your breath and you dive. And then when you can't hold your breath anymore, you go back up, and it's diving without the oxygen tank. And most of the people that I meet and that I talk to about diving say, wow, that's incredible, that's dangerous, that I could never do that. The funny part is that we all humans have a history of diving. We have something called the mammalian dive reflex, that when our body hits the water, we have our skin detects that there's water around us, and immediately when you are in a certain state of mind, your heart rate drops, which is an indicator for now you're consuming less oxygen and you're preparing to die. And the reason we're freediving, or that Fred and Will, my two colleagues or mentors, the reason they started freediving with sharks and developing to tag sharks on freediving, on breath hold diving, in comparison to scuba diving, and I scuba dive myself, is when you scuba dive, you do the Darth Vader sound. You do the typical. Mm-hmm. Now imagine that sound underwater. You're a shark, you're swimming around the reef, you're looking for fish or a nice lady shark, and somehow, 5 divers drop down, huge silhouettes coming down from the sky, all doing this noise and wailing with their fins and bubbles everywhere. You will cause a reaction in the environment. Fish will go away. Sharks will leave the area, which to most people is ironic, because they have that image of, the sharks come and they hunt you and they swim around you. If you scuba dive on a reef where there's sharks, I promise you that if you see sharks, that's probably only 10 or 20% of the sharks that live there, because they're scared and they go away.
Oh, okay.
That's basically why we free dive with sharks.
That is, I did not expect that. Wow. Yeah. Okay. Because it just never occurred to me that that'd be enough to scare them. Because they're not tiny animals, let's be honest. Like, it's not. I'll ask you, how long can you go without, taking another breath, I guess, underwater? Like, what's the timing there?
That depends on the activity you do. If it depends on how much CO2 you produce through your activity.
All right. So if you move around a lot, it's less, right? Because you're just okay.
Yes, exactly. That's how it is. So if I just lay in the water, I relax and then prepare, do a breathing exercise, and then hold my breath, I can do 5.5 minutes.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
If I dive to a reef that's at 20 meters, then that dive time is a lot shorter, probably around 2 minutes. Now, if you sprint down and there's current and you have a big camera in your hands and you see a shark, then it's probably even less. So it always depends on the activity, on the state of mind you're in, how relaxed you are. But probably when we dive with sharks, it's not longer than 2.5 minutes underwater.
Okay. But still a lot. I mean, I don't know how much I can go. Andrzej, what you got? What you think you got?
I don't know. I could probably do a minute, but if I stay completely still, yeah. Because I found that out. Because if you move around, it's just because you consume too much energy and then the CO2.
Lucas, to focus, for example, on great white sharks.
Which aren't the best sharks. Right, I'm just gonna say that.
Why are they not the best shark? Why are they not the best sharks?
Because the hammerhead is the coolest shark there is.
Oh, come on, man.
That is just a fact.
You guys are cool, man. Yeah.
Hammerhead is the funniest one, but the white shark is...
No, it's the coolest. The coolest shark is the hammerhead shark.
Come on.
You know your sharks, Andrzej.
Well, I don't know all of the species, right? But when you look at them,
yeah, but you know what's up. The great hammerhead is my favorite for sure too.
See.
Why is it? Why is it just because of the way he looks, or behavior, or like why is it your favorite?
It's everything. It's great hammerheads are my favorite shark for several reasons. First of all, they have this amazing anatomy, this amazing hammerhead. It's called cephalofoil. They have amazing fins, these characteristic big, long dorsal fins that look like blades. And they're super fast and they're super agile. You know, they're probably one of the few sharks that can spin around on its own axis and bite their own tail. They're super fast.
Oh, awesome.
And it's all of these things combined. And as well, when you dive with great hammerheads, they're fairly big sharks. They can grow up to 5.5, 6 meters, I guess. And they're really relaxed in the water. You can see a great hammerhead from the distance, and it comes at you slowly, and then you see it turns. 10 meters away from you, it turns, and then it circles. It goes away. You don't see it for 15 minutes. And it tries to figure out what are you and feel your heartbeat and your presence, because the shark doesn't want to get hurt. It's not about, ambushing or hunting, because the shark, hammerheads, they're a little bit shy. And then they come closer, and you can have really up close interactions. And they come close as, the eye of a hammerhead has been 5 centimeters away from my camera. And they're really relaxed to dive with. When you dive with bull sharks or great whites, because they're more bigger sharks, they hunt bigger prey. It's a little bit more challenging. You have to look more. You have to be a little bit more careful than with great hammerheads, and that's why I enjoy this species so much.
I mean, do you know the reason why is their head shaped like a hammer? Like, what's the advantage of having eyes so far apart? Do you know in this species? 'Cause I don't understand that. Why is it different than other sharks? What's the advantage, basically? I'm trying to ask.
First of all, the first advantage the cephalofoil, the hammerhead, gives that shark is it's a lot easier for them to be agile and move around up and down. They can do quicker turns because it's like a steering blade on a sail ship. The bigger that blade, the faster they can turn. So they found that the head shape actually enables them to be that agile and do quick turns. And also they use this hammer to hunt stingrays. So they'll swim around the sandy bottom with their rays, try to hide the stingrays in the Bahamas. and then, or other areas, but we saw them in the Bahamas. And then they go slowly around the sandy bottom, and they have these sensors called Pius de Lorenzini and Puli de Lorenzini. And they can detect electromagnetic fields and tensions in the currents in animals. So when they go around the sandy bottom and they have this huge surface on the hammerhead, they can detect prey really well. And then what they do is they use the hammer form to flip around or knock out the stingray and then eat it. So basically that head is for agility and hydrodynamics, and also for hunting stingrays. And they found that was incredible. I saw a report the other day that they found a hammerhead that had more than 20 stingray barbs stuck in its head from feeding on the stingrays.
Wow.
Jesus. Okay.
But are they more? Would you say they're more dangerous or more aggressive towards humans than for example, white sharks? Or is that a stupid question? Is that a stupid question? Like, is it possible to specify which sharks are more dangerous for humans and which are less? Or is basically, they're all the same, or basically just depends on situations and how you behave towards them and so on and so on?
They're all after Boki, basically. That's all we need to know. Yeah, this is basically therapy. This is not a podcast. This is just Boki trying to work it out.
Yeah. And then the podcast is called Lukas Müller explains what sharks are the most dangerous killing machines on the planet. For sure, yeah. You're right. It depends on situations, like everything in life. When you, for example, when you play basketball, and somebody says, who's the most difficult player to play against? It depends on the situation. It depends if it's an offense situation, a defense situation. It depends on the ball. It depends on your mood, the player's mood. Has he an injury? Are you injured? What's the strategy of the team? So everything in life depends on a situation. And I wouldn't say sharks are dangerous from an objective standpoint. When you look at the statistics, you look at the numbers, you look at how little people have to fear sharks when they go into the ocean. At the same time, sharks are predators, and so are lions, and so are grizzly bears. And we tend to, when we go into grizzly bear country, when I was in Canada hiking and doing grizzly bear watching and all that stuff, everybody was taking precautions. Even people who have never been to hiking or in the outdoors, and even people who were experts in the outdoors, everybody took precautions, and nobody was arrogant or disregarding the fact that you could run into a grizzly bear. Now, when we go into the ocean, we take for granted certain safety feelings, a certain comfortable feeling that nothing is going to happen. And people think that the beach, anywhere you go, be it in Australia, be it in Africa, or in the US, in Europe, you think the beach, that's our area, that's human area, that's our surfing place, that's our kiteboarding and swimming area where we could let our kids play in the sea. And we forget that sharks, it's the sharks' environment, it's their home, it's their sea, and that we have to make a conscious decision when we use that space for our activity. Now, certainly, when we talk about diving with sharks, there's sharks that I would, let beginner divers dive with and let them interact with sharks. And then, of course, there's certain shark species that I would rather say do not seek out the interaction. Don't go there and seek out active interactions with these animals. It's kind of like, let's say with bears or wild cats. When you go to Canada, there's black bears, there's grizzly bears. If you go really far up north, then there's a polar bear. Now, if somebody asks you, how do you interact with bears? Then that ranger would probably tell you, there's a big difference between seeing a small black bear and seeing a giant polar bear and being aggressive towards it, for example. So certainly, there's differences in certain species. And I would say that I'd let beginner divers go dive with blue sharks or blacktip reef sharks with a safe, good operator, somebody who is really sustainable and a good instructor in their business and their operation. And then, of course, there's individual sharks that, for example, bull sharks or great whites or tiger sharks that you have to have a certain experience in diving. You have to have a certain experience in seeing your environment. You have to have a good team. And of course, a very good operator that with safety guidelines and sustainable operation to make sure that you do all this in a safe environment.
Earlier, you mentioned this, for example, being a surfer and being in the water. I don't know if you saw there was a clip, like maybe it came out a week or two ago, maybe more, but I saw it like a couple of weeks ago. It's pretty fresh. Like it was filmed live on TV while there was some surf competition going on. I believe it was in Australia, but I'm not 100% sure.
It was in South Africa, actually.
South Africa, yeah. When a shark attacked a surfer while during competition, and luckily, he wasn't hurt and he was fine. But you could tell that he was the guy was really scared and shocked. And obviously. But I mean, is there a way? I mean, again, you guys are gonna laugh. I'm not asking this for myself because I'm not surfing. But is there something you can do if you see a shark nearby you? Like, how do you avoid getting attacked? How do you get yourself out of this situations?
Now, in this situation, it was one of those situations which. The video went viral. It was the surfer, I recall, was Mick Fanning, and they were surfing in South Africa. And South Africa is home to one of the biggest population and density of white sharks on the planet. And so some of these surfers in South Africa, I'd say most of them, they accept a certain risk when they go into the water. And they have that in the back of their mind. And in this instance, you could see the shark was definitely approaching the surfer, and there was a little bit of splashing of water. And
was that a great white? Can you tell which shark was that?
Yeah, that was a great white shark for sure. And I'd say this: I don't like to use the phrase shark attack, because that's a very negative term. And actually, what happens most of the time when somebody is approached by a great white shark or bitten by a great white is the shark lets go. In this instance, nobody was bitten. But the reason I'm saying this is if you look at the number of accidents or incidents that surfers, swimmers, or divers had with, for example, great white sharks, in 99%, the shark did not consume the person. It was just a simple bite. Now, if you get bitten by a 5 meter or 4 meter or 3 meter great white shark with sharp teeth, then obviously that small bite will leave a mark. It will leave, an injury. And most of the time people bleed out or die in the hospital or in the process. But the shark lets go because sharks, they don't have hands, to investigate an object. And especially if the visibility is not that good and the shark has problems identifying what that is, and most of the time the shark has been watching the surfer or diver for a longer time, then they take a test bite to feel and check out, what is this? Is this a seal? Is this a dead whale? Is this something I could eat? And then they realize, okay, this is not something I should eat. And they back off. In this instance, nobody was hurt. But I'd also, in the conservation and pro-shark community, there's a lot of people who say, the shark wasn't trying to bite him. He was just, investigating. And sharks are, they're not out to kill people. Yes, they're not out to kill people, but they do bite humans from time to time. They're not to blame for it, but they're still predators. So we have to have, a certain we have to go this fine line between, sharks are cute and cuddly animals and they're great. And we have to acknowledge that they're not cute, they're predators, but also they're not, killing machines.
Well, yeah, and like it should be said, like I guess the incidents are so rare. It's not even like if you just imagine all of the people that go in into the water at a beach somewhere in the world.
Exactly.
It's basically like statistically negligible, right? I mean, it's just
exactly.
It doesn't even show up basically.
And when I was in South Africa, actually, I've met scientists that study the movements of great whites in a place called Dyer Island in Gansbaai. It's one of the hotspots for cage diving, and you can see great whites anywhere. And actually, in this area, there's a couple of poachers, and they hunt abalone or collect abalone, and they. These poachers, they swim from shore. I think it's a 5-kilometer swim out to Dyer Island where there's a huge seal population. And I think it's the most densely white shark populated waters on the planet. And for the last, I guess it was 10 years, these poachers go out every day and swim back and forth between these islands. And only, I think, 5 years ago, there was one incident where one of these poachers was bitten by a shark. So now imagine how often these poachers must have encountered great white sharks and followed by great white sharks. And, sharks would have the opportunity to consume or bite or whatever these divers a lot of times, but nothing happens. But obviously, you don't see that in the news.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah. Obviously, the news are going to, like we talked about earlier, point out and sensationalize when there's one attack per year, for example, it does happen.
Yeah.
But no, I asked earlier, and maybe there's no answer to that. I was just asking, like, is there a way if you see a shark, like, what do you do? Like, because they say, like, for example, and you can correct me if I'm wrong with this one too. Like, they say, like, if you see a bear, just like stay still or like act dead or like whatever. I mean, is there like something you can do if there's a shark nearby and you're in the water or on a surf or whatever?
What I'd say, the best advice I think somebody should give you or could give you is. Take precaution measures. I mean, if you go into a car, and somebody asks you, what do I do when, I'm about to have an accident on the highway? Then, in driving school, they don't teach you, extreme situations, how to, when your car, spins at 200 kilometers per hour and you jump around the road and your car explodes, what do? What they teach you is push the brakes and put on your buckle up before you start driving.
Yeah, fasten the seatbelt, how to say.
When we take this comparison with the bears and the sharks is, when I was in Canada, these rangers, they told us, if you go through the forest and you don't have toothpaste or muffins or anything that smells good with you, and you stick to the rules, you stick to the hiking paths, and you shout every 15, 20 seconds, you shout, "Hey bears, how's it going? We're coming." So you let the bears know. Then, most likely, with a 99% chance, you won't encounter a bear. And that's how you avoid the situation. And with sharks, I tell you, look up the waters. Look, is there a population of sharks here? And in South Africa, there's areas where you can probably very safely dive without encountering shark. You can't reduce the risk to zero, but you can minimize it. And then there's certain areas where, there's more sharks.
Sorry, for example, earlier I said, but in Adriatic Sea or Mediterranean, we don't have any bigger sharks, blah, blah. You said more than you would think.
Yeah.
What are we trying to say by that? Like, I mean, even the Adriatic, for example, is there there's always a risk of encountering a shark, but I'm guessing that there's obviously areas where the risk is much, much smaller than, for example, Australia or Hawaii or South Africa. And,
Yeah, for sure. I was just messing with you, Boken.
Okay.
In the Mediterranean, there is great white sharks. I think it's one of the most international and transoceanic species in terms of migration, and certainly the population of great whites in the Mediterranean has been reduced by a lot. And, we know very little about that population. And no, but what I was saying regarding the risk, inform yourself about the waters, and then when you do go into the ocean and you take that risk, I'd say take a diving mask with you, because what we see with sharks, even with great white sharks or bull sharks or hammerhead sharks, when you establish eye contact and you let the animal know, I'm here and I'm confident and I'm not swimming away from you or splashing around like prey, then the shark knows, okay, this is not prey. This is not something I should easily investigate. And soon the shark will take distance and be more careful, because sharks, they don't have a doctor. They can, when they're injured, they can go to the hospital or doctor and fix their eye or fix their fin. So they have to be really careful when approaching prey. So let's say this: when you go out to surf, when you go out to swim, take a dive mask with you, and every now and then check the waters. Check whether there's fish around you. Check where there's sharks. And then when you see a shark, don't panic. Be relaxed. Look at the shark. Establish eye contact. And I guarantee you that most of the time, the shark will either circle around you a couple of times, check you out and leave, or leave immediately. There's a lot of videos coming up on YouTube right now of encounters with great white sharks for example, in Florida, because the population on the east coast of the United States has increased over the last years, luckily, where divers encounter a great white shark by accident. And in 99% of the time, the shark just cruises by for a couple of seconds and then it leaves, And other sharks, like reef sharks, etc., they're way smaller, and most of the time, once you establish eye contact, they will leave and leave you alone.
All right. I hope I don't ever get in those situations. But thanks for the advice.
You should come out. You guys should come out.
I am all for it. I think, yeah.
I would really love to go. Like, I'm not promising that I would actually go in the water, but I would definitely go on a trip and watch you guys up close doing what you're doing. And earlier in the email, when we were going back and forth, you mentioned about all the problems that are going on with sharks right now worldwide. Especially, you said that it's basically like a Wild West right now out in the open waters with how they are killing sharks, millions, a year or whatever. Can you talk more about that? Like, what kind of problem is there going on, and that people in general don't even know about? That when it comes to killing sharks every year.
Yeah, to me it was heartbreaking when I first saw what was going on with the seas and how we overfish our oceans. I was heartbroken. And most of people don't know this. There's, more and more people start to realize what's going on. They see documentaries, they see media. Basically, what's happening with sharks is there's something called shark fin soup, which is a delicacy in Asia, mainly in China.
Yeah, I've heard of that. Yeah.
Yeah. I've seen. Actually, I was just in a Chinese restaurant here in Slovenia a couple of days ago, and they had a shark fin soup. I was like, ugh. I didn't eat it.
Yeah. No, but that's the terrible thing, because they just take the fin, right?
Yes.
Exactly. I heard that they basically catch a shark, cut away the fin, and they release the shark, which basically dies because it can't swim normally again.
It's not only like it's a horrible scene. If you see it. It looks very, very disturbing, but also it's really unsustainable. Like if you would, for example, imagine a country would take their sheep, take their pigs, take their cows, and just cut off the legs and then throw the rest of the body, the rest of the meat away. Just leave it, dump it on the open field. People would go crazy because we see it, because it's happening on land. It's happening right where we see it. But because few people look below the ocean surface, because many people have this fear, like you have that natural fear, and maybe also this increased fear through the media that you do not want to go into the water. Because few people look underwater, and because the ocean is so vast, we don't immediately see what's happening. And basically what happens is there's numbers that are being thrown around from 30 million sharks killed per year to 100 million, maybe more. Nobody knows.
That is unbelievable. That's like mind-blowing numbers. I mean,
it is
30 million, 100 million. I mean, do we know which nations, like which countries are the worst at that? I mean, imagine, I don't know, Asian countries, African countries. Like, how does?
Yes, the most fins are consumed in China and Hong Kong, but also. We in Europe, we tend to point at China and Hong Kong and other countries and say, raise our finger and be like, you're such a bad guy, you're killing sharks. But most of the people don't know that most of the sharks that are shark fins that come from the Atlantic go through Spain.
Really?
And Spain is one of the major trading places on the planet for shark fins. It's in the EU. And, over the last years, pressure has been building up on certain countries, but it's not enough. There's still a lot to be done to ban shark fin trade. Yesterday, UPS, for example, announced that they won't ship shark fins anymore because there's certain campaigns, initiatives, NGOs, a lot of grassroots movements from divers and people who are passionate about sharks that try to change something. And for sure, there has been a lot of progress over the last 10, 20, 30 years. But still, a lot of sharks are being fished unsustainably, and populations have dropped by more than 90% in many, many places.
Well, I really hope those numbers go down, because the way you mentioned all these millions and millions, it's just creepy, to know that's going on.
Yeah, and the crazy thing about it is there's something called the high seas. And most of the ocean's surface and ocean body is not regulated. So nations can fish whatever they want out of these waters. And a lot of times, there's poor African nations or South American nations which have really, really amazing underwater ecosystems, really amazing underwater scenery and fish populations, shark populations, which are valuable a lot of money. In terms of resources, they provide livelihoods to people. They're important in the culture. But because of the high seas, basically countries only regulate or can regulate and enforce their seas and their fishing regulations only a few miles out from the coast. So, other countries, let's say both from China, from Malaysia, from Spain, can go to these nations and with a little bit of, bribing and efforts, they can simply wipe out entire fish populations and eradicate entire ecosystems and ruin livelihoods for millions of people. And it's one of the biggest crises in terms of environment that we have on the planet right now, hugely underestimated.
I just wanted to ask, the Waterman project, because when you guys, we didn't really talk about it, but when you guys free dive with the sharks, you tag them, right? Just what exactly do you tag the sharks with?
Yeah, so the Waterman project was started by William Winram, and it was founded by William Winram and his wife. And basically how it came along was that Frederick Boyle, he's an underwater photographer and former freediving world record holder, and William Winram, and he's basically my mentor and the current world record holder in freediving. These guys started tagging sharks using their freediving skills. Because the problem oftentimes is that sharks, when you want to study sharks, they're in very remote locations. So you have to go out there, you have to bring all your equipment, and it's very difficult to approach certain sharks. And the traditional approach to tag a shark is you throw out hook and line, you put some bait on it, you hook the shark and you fish it, you catch it, and you pull it to the boat, you fix it, and then you have 20 minutes. Most scientists try to, shorten and decrease the time they need for tagging. And then you can put a transmitter on the shark, you can take samples of the shark, measurements, and study the shark. You release it. The problem with that method is some species don't react to it very poorly. For example, the great hammerhead, 50% of the animals die when being tagged with the traditional tagging method, when they're caught with hook and line. And some species you can't even fish. There's a species called scalloped hammerhead. It's a very cool shark. And if you've seen those big schools of hammerheads, for example, in Cocos Island or the Galapagos, where there's hundreds of hammerheads, diving or swimming amongst divers, most likely that's scalloped hammerheads. And this species, you can't catch it. They tend not to bite on hook and line. So scientists were looking for a method to tag sharks. And William and Fred basically, used their freediving ability to very quietly, without a lot of noise, without startling the animal, without scaring the animal, approach sharks and use a modified spear gun to place a transmitter on the shark. And you can use these transmitters then to see where sharks are going. For example, we placed a satellite transmitter on a great hammerhead a year and a half ago in the Bahamas. And basically what that showed us was that the hammerhead shark traveled from Bimini, an island in the Bahamas off Florida, all the way up to Virginia Beach, which is several thousand kilometers. I think it's 1,200 kilometers, if not more.
Wow.
It traveled within 30 days. And which shows, in the Bahamas, sharks are protected. It's a shark sanctuary, and the Bahamas try to protect their resource as best as possible because sharks generate millions of tourist money through shark diving in the Bahamas every year. But the shark travels to the US. So basically, as soon as the shark leaves the shark sanctuary of the Bahamas and it's in US waters, it can be fished by sport fishermen, for example. They have to release it, but as I said, if you catch a great hammerhead and you release it, chances are 50-50 it's going to die, and it's endangered species. So we can find out where sharks are going and increase our chances of protecting them. Because to be honest, if I'm a fisherman, be it in Mexico or the Bahamas, and I have to earn a living for my family, I have to provide money and food for my kids and pay for their education money and just simply earn a living, then I'll do anything for it. And if some scientist or some conservationist or some freediver comes along as a privileged person and they have education and all that knowledge, comes along and tells me, okay, you can't fish in this area for 5 months of the year in the entire country, then most likely that fisherman will say, well, I'm not able to earn a living that way, so I will break the law and continue fishing. But if you can approach these fishermen and explain them, basically there's 3 or 4 reefs that are hotspots for a certain species of shark during a certain season of the year, and ask them and the government to protect and close down fisheries at specific areas for specific species at specific times of the year. Your chance of, getting these fishermen to collaborate with you and getting governments to collaborate with you increases dramatically. So that's basically why we tag sharks, is to find out where they go and when they go there.
And do you know which sharks migrate the biggest distances? Is there like one species that goes further than the other, like in general? Or like, for example, does it actually like go from continent to continent as well?
Yeah, there's certainly several species that are capable of doing that. Great white sharks, for example, are a great example for that. There was a shark named Nicole that was tagged by a scientist called Michael Scholl in South Africa and his colleagues. And Nicole traveled from South Africa to Australia and back within, I guess it was a little less than 3 months. But I'm not sure I'm correct on that. I'd have to look that up.
Still, that's the distance.
Still, it's a huge distance. And there's been other great whites that do a migration from the east coast of the US, go all the way through the Atlantic. They pass by the Azores, the Azorean Islands, and then go back. There's great whites that we study in the Pacific. They go from Mexico, an island off Baja California, and they travel through an area called the offshore, called the SOFA, where either they're feeding or mating. There's still debate on what's going on there, but they do a huge migration. Some of them go on to Hawaii and then come back. So there's huge potential for transoceanic migrations. And I'm certain that there's many more species and many more populations in different parts of the area that do huge migrations that we have no clue yet that they're doing it.
So there's still a lot of things undiscovered when it comes to sharks and everything connected to it.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, hopefully with people like you and the people that do similar job that you do, that will know more about it in the future. I think it's a super interesting species, a super interesting animal. That's, like you said, it's misunderstood in a lot of ways in the time that we live now.
Yeah, thanks for having me, by the way. Because it's not only science is one thing and tagging animals, but it's also trying to engage the public, and be it through podcasts, be it through radio or TV, to engage people and let people know that what science is about, and not be all scientific about it. Explain it.
Yeah, in a very how to say I would say user friendly way.
That's a pretty good
for the lack of a better word. Yeah, you know what I mean. Like,
so am I user friendly?
You are for sure.
Yeah. I am. Okay.
For the end, I just want to ask you, like, what are your goals? Like, what are you looking forward to? What are you trying to accomplish in the line of work that you do?
Man,
I mean, is there a set goal, or you just go with it? Just go with the flow and just live out the adventures that you're participating in, or is there some goals that you want to achieve when you're 40, 50, 60, whatever,
Man, that's a really good question. I do have projects in mind. There's certain projects I want to do. And I do want to keep on studying science, maybe do a PhD, etc. But I really, really love what I do at the moment. And the Waterman Project, as a really hands-on organization and doing expeditions and not be so theoretical about it, but, be in the field and doing actual real work and science and reaching out to people and, being able to share it with people like you and all over the world is a huge blessing. And I love my job. I get to work with some of the best, if not the best, freediving athletes and ocean explorers on the planet I get to learn from. So I will go with the flow. I will keep on doing what I do. And then if there's a huge project I want to do, I will pursue that. And maybe in 5 years we'll hang out again on a podcast, and I don't know, maybe I'm a butterfly scientist, as you said. We'll see.
The way you talk about sharks, I highly doubt it, but we'll see. but I'll definitely love to talk to you about it in a few years and see where the project has gone, where it's gone, and where you are and what you're doing. And I'll definitely be listening to the Joe Rogan podcast when you're a guest over there.
Yeah, I hope that works out. If you guys ever want to do a shark dive, if you ever want to come on expedition, you're highly appreciated. And
I'm gonna pester Boki to do that. Like you have my word. I'm gonna keep reminding him that that's an option. Like,
we'll Lukas, we'll keep in touch, and once I get enough, once I grow balls big enough, like they say, we'll join in one of those expeditions. But I'd love to do it. No, seriously, I would love to do it.
Yeah, for sure, because it's not only the diving part. When people come on expedition with us, and we always welcome people that are interested who do not have a science background or a freediving background to join us on expedition and take a look at the science. And instead of doing a diving safari and spend the money on a typical, dive boat, they get to prepare the tags with us. They get to see the tagging, and they get to, reconnect and re-engage with science and all that. So if you guys come, you'll see the tags, you see everything, and you'll learn all about butterflies.
Just one question. You don't have one of those huge steel cages, do you? I mean,
we do.
Okay, maybe that would work.
What we do with the white sharks for sure is, and I always like to mention, or I have to mention it for my own conscience, is when we go to Guadalupe Island, where you have the biggest great whites on the planet, I think, there's cage diving is an industry there. And it's a really important industry because it allows people to see great white sharks from a cage, from a safe environment, without the risk of something happening, because a diver makes a mistake or is uneducated or there's a certain difficult situation, and maybe, somebody films it, the footage comes out, and then you'll have millions of clips, like with the Mick Fanning video of a shark being depicted as something that it's not, maybe a killing machine. We always, for people that join our expeditions, have people in the cage. There's that trend that at certain locations in Guadalupe and other areas, people want to go outside the cage and want to touch great whites, want to cuddle them, want to have a photo with a great white. And I personally am not a fan of that when it comes to media coverage, etc. We have scientific, and I always mention that, is we have scientific permits to do this. We work together with the Mexican government, with the local biosphere management, have a good relationship with them. And we make sure that everything we do is in line with, certain ethical standards, safety standards, and make sure that there's no risk for the animal and that we abide by the law. And we see that oftentimes that people have this overcompensation from, sharks are depicted as killers. So to change that paradigm, we have to cuddle them. We have to touch them. We have to ride them. And without saying names or going to the whole politics, I'm saying is, if you want to do something good for sharks, then, it's good enough to do a cage dive. It's good enough to maybe dive with a blue shark first and then work your way up. But please don't go somewhere for a Facebook picture or a Twitter picture and risk for some bad media to be produced in the process and maybe even worsen the image of a shark.
No, if we decide to do it, we'll definitely go with people that know how to do it, and I think you will be our first choice. So,
I am. I'm just gonna keep reminding you.
Sold.
Yeah.
No. Boken, you'll go outside the cage with us, dressed as a seal, and we'll film the whole thing.
I just go to see Boki dressed as a seal. Like, I don't.
Yes,
that's enough.
Like, I went to one of those like water worlds places a couple of months ago with my kids to see to see dolphins, and I fucking felt horrible about it. Like the way they are kept in there. I don't even know like if they switch them back and forth, like bring new ones in and release them, or how does that work? But it's so horrible to be like captured in this small area. And I saw like this photo of this one water world like in the States somewhere, I guess in Florida, where it showed a comparison to like the parking lot around them, which was like miles and miles and miles, and then the pool where those dolphins live was like super small compared to the parking. And you would like thinking to yourself, like even the freaking parking is like 100 times bigger than where these dolphins are kept, you know?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it definitely wasn't enjoyable for me, but I think like zoos and all these things is definitely a good education tool, to say so, for kids. But other than that, like I hate going to zoos and all these things, because I just get depressed by being there, you know?
Yeah, I mean, zoos and aquariums, and certainly, SeaWorld is a very, very touchy topic. And I've just been, 2 days ago, I was filming with a camera team here, did a couple of interviews about sharks, and we went to Sea Life, which is like a chain in Germany of aquariums where they have sharks. They don't have mammals. And, whenever I go to an aquarium or a zoo, I think they do have a role in, showing people the animals, showing people what's out there. And for me, I spend many, many days of the summer in aquariums to look at sharks and to be fascinated by them. And I think a lot of people, why they care about certain animals, because they've seen them in the zoo. But obviously, there's certain species you can't ethically cage in and let live on a few square meters. From apes like orangutans or killer whales. You just can't if you want the animal to have a good life.
Yeah, no, it's really bad, and I had like a super bad experience when I played in Russia. One season, actually, I was like a half a season. I was in Kazan in Russia, and they actually, believe it or not, they had like a zoo there. Even though like I don't even know how these animals survive in the winter, for example, because the winter is super cold over there. But the zoo I went to, I even still have some photos on my old phone about it. Like I tweeted about it at the time, and obviously not expecting that anything would change. But I just try to let like at least my friends who are like following me on Twitter and people know what's going on. Like the conditions that for example, they had bears and lions and some of the mammals there. The condition that those animals lived in, I think the people who are keeping them there, they should be gone to prison, because I have never seen anything worse than that. Like basically a bear. Like a big bear living on like I would say not more than like 4 or 5 square meters cage on a sun, on like a concrete bottom, basically no roof, no nothing. And just sitting there and just laying there, like not even moving. Like when I took my kids there, like we left after like 15 minutes, because I was like, I'm not even gonna like show my kids like just a basically half dead bear living there on like being tortured like that. It's horrible. And those are the things that are like, making me like depressed, because if you go to a zoo and you see like the animals are really well taken care of and they're an educational tool, and young people can learn from it and so on and so on, I can kind of understand it. But other than that, I really don't.
Yeah,
I really don't see a point. It's just making profit for some people.
Oh, you should see Blackfish then.
What is that?
That is the most depressing documentary about aquariums.
I don't know. I have to check that out. Actually, I don't know if I want to.
You have, no, you should. Like it's a great documentary, but it's a little depressing. It's about the orca whales in SeaWorld. It's just
Really? Lukas, you know about this?
I've seen it, and it certainly has its drawbacks as, let's say, an objective documentary, but it really gives a good insight into what can happen if you cage in an extremely intelligent mammal like a killer whale. What will happen to them? And basically what happens is, as Andrzej can confirm, is that trainers at SeaWorld were killed by...
Yeah, but they're not really trainers. That's the whole point. Like, well, they are, but not all of them.
Yeah.
Like, I was just surprised at the just lack of sort of, at least that's how it is in the documentary. I was just surprised at the sort of lack of expertise in those places. You just kind of assume everybody there knows what they're doing, and clearly not everybody does, right? I don't want to generalize too much, but yeah, it was kind of weird.
No, it's a depressing documentary, but it gives it was really successful, and I think it put
some pressure on the aquariums. Yeah. Book, you should definitely watch that documentary.
No, I'll check it out. What did you say it's called?
Blackfish.
Yeah, Blackfish. And with sharks, it's different. It's if you interact with, let's say, a killer whale or a whale, certainly you will have a chance of an interaction. But most of the time, dolphins, they see you. When we were in Mexico in Revillagigedos, I saw a pod of dolphins. They checked me out. Then they, circled me twice, and I tried to interact with them, and they realized, fuck, man, this guy is crippled. This guy, he can't even be as fast as us. He's not fun diving with us. He's just sitting there with his stupid camera. So they realize how incapable of diving you are, and even, free diving athletes, the best of the world, can't match the speed and agility and underwater intelligence that a dolphin has. So most of the time they just see you, check you out, take off. With sharks, it's different because they're evolutionary. They've been around for millions of years, hundreds of millions of years. I think 100 million years. Great whites have been around for 70 million years. So, I'd say they're more primitive in terms of how they investigate food. I'd say dolphins are a lot more intelligent, and they check you out, and they know in an instant you're not food, you're not prey. But sharks, I'd say they're not that intelligent as a dolphin, so they'll check you out, and that's why it's so amazing to have, to have a great white shark or tiger shark or a hammerhead shark or even a blacktip shark swim past you and investigate you, because you can feel that there's a certain part of the interaction that you control, by your body movement, by your language, and there's a certain part that the shark controls. And with mammals, it's just, either the whale or dolphin decides that you're fun or not. I guess it's like with men and women, either the woman decides you're fun or not.
All right, and on that note, let's wrap it up. Lucas, I can't thank you enough, man. This was an awesome conversation, man. Like, I hope some of the listeners are gonna agree, but to me, like, you really opened up my eyes about sharks, and I'm not bullshitting. Like, I do feel better about it. Like, finally, I had the chance to talk about it. Somebody to explain me more about it and to make me understand those animals and those species a little bit differently. And I can't thank you enough for taking your time.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me. And I appreciate it. I was really I was a bit nervous, to be honest, to do the podcast, because in TV or radio you can always edit something, and it's a little bit filtered. You have takes, and I enjoyed this, and hopefully at some point we can do it again, and hopefully I was a worthy guest of your podcast.
Oh yeah, no doubt. We'd love to do it again, and
absolutely. Yeah.
Best of luck, like in your adventures. I'll follow it as it goes along, and maybe in a couple of years when you have a lot more experience and you go through some interesting things, we can catch up again. I'd love to talk about it again, And
now we'll catch up on expedition when you wear that seal suit.
Absolutely, yeah. Both seal suit. That's it.
Okay, to je bil Lukas Müler.
Ja.
Prijeten dečko, ne?
Res je.
Prijeten dečko, ki je tako malo za zabavo z velikimi belimi morskimi psi plava. Mislim, fascinantno. No. Če to ni nekaj ekstra, pa tudi ne vem. Ampak, ko ne lažem, ko rečem, da me je, bom rekel, za malo prepričal, pa se nisem mislil kadarkoli, da bi me lahko kdo prepričal, ampak me je v bistvu malo bolj prepričal, da bi si mogoče, pa ne upoplava z njimi, ampak da drugače gledam na te živali zdaj. No. V bistvu, ko imaš enega človeka, ki se dejansko z njimi ukvarja, ki z njimi preživi ure in ure, ki ve točno, kakšni so, kako reagirajo, kako je treba z njimi se obnašati, potem se nekako zdi, da le malo spremeniš svoj pogled na take stvari. No. Ne vem, a se motim?
Ne, mislim, da imaš prav. Da ja. Mislim, fajn je videti enega, ki je tok nakomotno, če nič drugega.
Ja, Pa da zna na en tak, bom rekel, človeko prijazen način to se opisati, da ni nek zategnjenec, ki bi sam strašil, pa ampak ti zna lepo povedati, to so te stvari, to je treba praziti, to so laži, tako naprej. Tako da, dejte, če ne drugega, dejte ga mogoče po Twitterju pofollowati, pa kakorkoli spremljati to njegove dogodivščine oziroma njihove avanture, ki oni govorijo, predvsem tem, ker se mi zdi, da konec koncev hoče samo nekaj dobrega narediti za to vrsto živali. Tako da ja, dejte malo to popreti za tem followom, pa mogoče kakšna beseda korajže. Čeprav, ja, tisto pa ne, če se bo zgodilo, da bom jaz zdaj v tjulnovi oblekciji plaval po vodi.
Jaz mislim, da se bo. Jaz na to računam in tako je v življenju. Deal with it, se temu reče.
Ampak ne pričakuj to naslednje poletje.
Bomo videli. Pustimo se preseneti.
Ja. O glavnem admin stvari, kaj še imamo?
Ja, valjda, dajte nam oceno v iTunesih, drugače smo valjda na aparatus.si, imamo tudi Twitter account, aparatus.si, tako da nas lahko tam posledite, tega upravlja naš služen strokovnjak. Aparatus lahko tudi podprete, to naredite tako, da greste na aparatus.si/podpri, oziroma zdaj tudi lahko na aparatus.si/salca in kupite našo odlično šalco, ves denar bo šel potem za opremo in za serverje. Tako da to mislim, da je bil cel admin.
To je to.
Ja.
Kje se tebe najde na internetu?
Jaz sem na Twitterju afna_anzet. Kaj pa ti, Boki?
Jaz sem Boki Nahbar na Twitterju, pa Instagram Boki Nahbar.
Ja, si res, to pozavim, da moramo reči, veš.
Pa ti imaš tudi Instagram?
Ja, imam, jaz sem isto, jaz sem posod Anzeta.
Aha, ja. Kaj si pa na Periskopu?
Tudi Anzeta.
Okay.
Sem Anzeta. V bistvu se trudim, da sem posod Anzeta.
Ja, razen tam, kjer si Atom Mix.
V glavnem,
okay.
To je to.
Torej, to je to. Hvala ful za poslušanje, še enkrat thanks tistim, ki ste bili na liveu, pa se slišimo naslednjič.
Res je, ajde.
Ok, aj, čau.